I really can't wait until Library starts doing their live streaming thing. Should be like in a couple weeks, I guess. They're rolling out for select people at a time.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, but like right now, I mean, to be fair, I think it's going to be Odysee, not Library, not the whole decentralized network, but just the one front end on it. I don't know how they're
Mm.
tackling. I don't know how they're tackling live streaming in a completely decentralized way. But when that happens, I won't have to send people onto YouTube all the time, which you know is a little annoying. But um,
Yeah. Um, yeah. I use Odyssey a fair amount. I would actually use it
mm-hmm,
probably two or three times as much, except that the things I watch always post to YouTube first. So I
mm-hmm.
have to have patience if I want to watch it on Odyssey.
Yeah,
So
which is it's not
I
always
end
great
up,
to have. Well, anyway, there's two
yeah.
people watching right now. I guess we're live enough to make this work.
Oh,
So,
okay.
hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Let me hit the little intro and we'll get going. Yeah, so hey everyone, how's it going? Looks like we just got two people on. I'm joined by the fantastic Age of Doge, or Eric Olson as he's more commonly known. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How about you?
I did pretty well. I definitely seen you pop in and around in the Dash space for a long time. You're at the open house, I believe, in Phoenix, not too
Yeah.
a year or so ago, a couple of years. I don't know. Time flies. I don't keep track of those things, but yeah. So pretty much you came back onto the radar for. I mean, obviously we've been interacting for a while, but you were on a friend's podcast talking about dumping all your Bitcoin, which is always a great clickbaity kind of headline. And so I figured, hey, anyone and everyone, anyone can get it, as I say. Anyone who can wants to come on and talk about this stuff, it's always a great thing. So, would you mind just quickly recapping kind of like who you are, your time in the crypto space, like basically your whole crypto journey and how you got interested in Dash to begin with?
Sure. Well, I got started in crypto in 2011, and of
Wow.
course, nobody knew what it was then. And during 2011, 2012, I spent a lot of time trying to explain to people what Bitcoin was and why it was such an important thing. And I feel like I put so much effort into trying to get people to take Bitcoin seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody wanted to learn or understand, and they just dismissed it out of hand. Now I feel like it's been around long enough that it's just built up this, like, oh,
It's a
it's
thing
a
now.
thing that's going to stick, and now we trust it. But nobody actually learned why it was what the value was in the first place. So they don't know how to evaluate if it still has that value. They've
Mm-hmm.
just gotten used to it. And so I don't know, it's a really weird feeling to me to see everybody jumping on the bandwagon now that, to me, it feels like it's pretty much lost everything that was of interest to me in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Internet Explorer meme of like, who are we? Web browsers. What do you want that? And then Internet Explorer, like 5 minutes there, web browsers. It's like that delayed reaction where everyone's like, Bitcoin's awesome because these 10 things, and then it takes 10 years, and then people are like, Bitcoin's awesome because these things. Like, wait, but things have shifted since then. It's not quite the same anymore.
Yeah, I think it's an overall problem with people not appreciating how much things change over time. I feel like most people are behind on most things most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
especially larger groups of people like governments and big companies. I feel like they're always lagging substantially, unless they're the ones pushing things forward. There's some cases of that, but um, yeah, it feels like people just expect things to be the same. Somebody tries something and it doesn't quite work, and now forever, that's a thing that isn't possible or that isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
So where'd your interest in Dash pop in?
well, during the whole Bitcoin block size debate fiasco that went on and on, what was that, like 2 years? That was an argument for, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a fairly absurd thing to argue about, and I started looking at what the alternatives were,
Hmm.
and Dash stuck out to me as, well, one of the only projects that was actually really focused on being a currency, which is my
Hmm.
primary interest. That's
Of
what I
course.
want crypto for. I want to spend it. I want to use it. I want to not be dependent on banks, or I don't want to pay high fees for financial services. I don't want to see businesses get cut off by Visa or PayPal or the government or whatever it might be. And that's what Bitcoin initially promised. And then as I started to learn about the whole masternode system, I realized that that is the solution to Bitcoin's actual problem. I think
Hmm.
the block size issue wasn't the problem. Having a good consensus mechanism was the problem. And the dispute in the block size was kind of a symptom of that. We have a situation where with mining consensus, you end up with a few big pools controlled by a few people, and people who actually have investment in the coin, or who are using the coin for business or for savings or whatever they're using it for, really have no say at all in Bitcoin. And I think that's a really bad way to lay out your incentives. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's basically the governance problem, and governance is one of those things where uh, I think a lot of people get wrong because they just think you don't see it unless there's a problem. It's dispute resolution
yeah,
mechanism, and if there's no disputes, then there's nothing to resolve. And on the other hand, if there's no disputes, you shouldn't be thinking about governance all day long because there's no problem. Like, you don't want to be stuck in bureaucracy forever instead of actually using the coin and promoting it forward and getting it used for real things. So it's like that middle ground that, like, I think that a lot of projects might have gone like overstepped. Now they're like, well, let's vote on everything, let's vote on this, let's vote on that. And it's like, but it not being able to do that is just, it's kind of a fatal thing. So
yeah.
that was like 2015 or so, 20 somewhere around there when you started to get interested in that.
Uh, let's see. When did Dash get up to about $100 the first time around? I think
That was
that's
early
probably
2017.
when 2017. Yeah, it was a little while before the big bubble up.
Hmm.
Uh,
So like 2016 probably. I started
yeah, sure.
focusing on. I started like actually using Dash when it was like $7 a coin, which is late 2016. And I heard about Darkcoin and was very interested in it when it was Darkcoin in 2014 when I saw someone selling bacon pancakes for it at PorkFest up here in New Hampshire. And I was like, well, what's this
Mhm.
Darkcoin stuff? And then that's where it happened. Yeah, so it's like right around that time. So we got the timeline of events. 2011, you're about crypto. It's like, wow, Bitcoin's amazing. Around about 2016 or 2017, the block size debate is annoying enough that I want to look into alternatives. And then you get to, let's just say, what is it, 4 years after that, 4.5 years after that, where you're just like, you know what, I'm done with Bitcoin. Was there a catalyzing moment on where you're at now?
Well, it's been a long time coming. I
Mm-hmm.
started moving out of Bitcoin and into Dash, a couple of years ago before the last bubble, and I've slowly been shifting more and more that way. um, because nothing's getting better. Nobody's introduced any new governance fixes to Bitcoin or to Bitcoin Cash.
Or
Um,
to Bitcoin SV, or
yeah,
to
SE,
Bitcoin
and
ABC, also known as eCash, I think they're going to call themselves.
my first thought when Bitcoin Cash split off was, okay, this is a reasonable solve to the block size issue.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going to prevent it the next time there's an issue? Like, okay, we've split the community into the pro big block people and the anti big block people. But that's not the only issue there's going to be. We're going to have to constantly upgrade the network. There's going to be new problems. There's going to be new features that need to be implemented. It's not a static thing. We can't just create a system and then let it, it's not going to be written in stone for all time. We live in ridiculously quickly changing times, and there's going to have to be a way to come to consensus. And my initial thought for Bitcoin Cash was, this is going to end up forking again. And I posted about that, and pretty much everybody in the community just dismissed that kind of talk. And, well, It's happened. So
How many more forks do you think there's going to be? I mean, I did not, maybe because I wasn't as deep into the ecosystem, but I was not anticipating the ABC split. I thought that, you know, when the SV people went away, I thought it was like Craig Wright was forking off, when it was really Craig Wright was forking off, but also people were forking off from, you know, Amari Sachet and his ideas and stuff. And then when that happened, I was like, really, is this going to be a split? And it was. It's kind of weird.
yeah, I haven't followed it super closely. It's actually worse than I thought. I thought it would take another totally different serious issue to cause more splits, but seems like even the block size thing has continued to divide people. Um,
Yeah. And that's one thing I'm really wondering about with Bitcoin Cash today is what's going to, like, basically you start with an idea, which is scale on chain. All right, you split, you're fine. But then Amari and ABC started to come up with a bunch of other ideas, some of which were popular, some of which were not. You need continuing development. And the continuing development ended up, you know, basically pissing off the SV people who split off. And their whole idea is like, don't develop anymore, sue everyone instead. I mean, maybe I'm being a little unfair. I mean, that's more Craig Wright, to be honest. There's a bunch of people building
yeah.
interesting stuff on the SV blockchain. But then it's like, then you have ABC. Okay, well, they're getting too radical. They want to be paid from the block reward. They want to do all this stuff. Get rid of them. So now they're doing their own thing. And then the people who are running Bitcoin Cash node, which is just, you know, just basically copy and paste Bitcoin ABC, except not run by those guys. Now, what are they going to do? Like, where does that move forward, and what else are they going to be contentious about there?
Yeah. Oh, the other big problem is information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who holders don't know, investors don't know, companies supporting these networks don't know where everybody stands and what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, we had that vote somebody put on the Dash proposal system
Mm-hmm.
to ask masternodes if we would increase the block size if the fee went up to a certain amount. And we got a response. We know what the intentions are of the holders and voters in the network. It's not a mystery. We don't have to wait for somebody to write a piece of software, release it, and then find out where the chips fall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of uncertainty, I think that's a really big problem, especially you have a chain that has billions of dollars of people's money on it. Um,
Or
you don't want
trillions.
that.
I
You
mean,
want to know. Yeah. Well, in the case of Bitcoin, yeah, nearly a trillion.
I think it did hit a
Uh,
trillion briefly, didn't it?
yeah, was that over a trillion? We've lost a good chunk of that now, but I'm sure it will be again.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just can't have that. You got to know.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have some confidence in what is going to happen. There's got to be a way to communicate that information uh, to investors. You know, how can you have a confidence in your network if you don't know what's going to happen to your network?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's one of those things that was, I guess, first off, communicated by Bitcoin. The two main flavors of maximalist, the big one, of course, Bitcoin. The minor one would be SV maximalist. Both of them talk about you don't want something that's going to change too much. Like with Bitcoin, it's like, well, it has to evolve to a certain extent, but it has to remain like the no hard forks rule. Like you have to be able to sync a 2009 node or whatever to like a modern day node. That's like a priority. And I think it's a little silly, but there is a I guess a use case of that where you're going to turn it on, it's going to work no matter what. And the SV case is the same thing where they just say, well, the protocol's set in stone, just scale infinitely, but everything else got to be the same. And I understand that as well. The problem is we're talking about a living piece of technology that has to change all the time. And when the user experience radically changes because something did not change, sometimes you get change by not changing. And sometimes the only way to not change is to change. And so, in that weird twist of fate, not being able to actually progress forward, not being able to actually make any kind of real changes, ends up making your user experience that people signed up for, the peer-to-peer electronic cash, as it were, just kind of go away.
yeah. Um, Yeah, I think a worse product could win if it already had a decisive network effect advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin had that, but it has to remain good enough that it still functions.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the case for Bitcoin. And I think it's going to get a lot worse. And I want to say before it gets better, but I don't know that it is going to get better. The fees at this point are already such that you might as well just do bank wire transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Even compared to gold, I can go drive down to the store and buy an ounce of gold cheaper and faster than I can buy the same value in Bitcoin right now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves because you don't get the trillion market cap thing that everyone talks about and companies are buying into and stuff. You're not going to get that thing to just like give up its place within a year or even two or even probably five. So we will see an evolution of where Bitcoin goes from here. It seems like the Lightning Network is largely a bust. I mean, a lot of people stopped even talking about it. I've used it recently. The UX has gotten better recently, but there's still a lot of problems that won't really work at scale. I think Bitcoin is going to, before other things take it over, I guess, will scale on centralized platforms, meaning you never move it off the exchange.
Yeah, I think that's the end game for Bitcoin, and that's why these big institutions are fine with holding it. The banks don't care if it costs $10,000 to do a Bitcoin transaction, and everybody just has to keep their Bitcoin in their bank account and use it like a checking account.
Mm-hmm.
So the users lost all of the advantage of Bitcoin except for inflation protection, and the banks get to keep all their business, and we basically lose everything that Bitcoin promised. Um, but I'm not even sure there's enough room in the block size for just the banks. I don't think interbank transfers could be accomplished on chain with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And you, I think people think about the Bitcoin cost situation wrong. And they think, well, okay, this is my life savings. I'm not going to do transactions out of here. So what if it's expensive? You know, but it's not just a matter of price. Only so many people can get into that block regardless of the price.
Yeah.
So, if there's only enough block space for the biggest banks and the biggest national governments, and everybody else has to, have an account with them that trades off chain somehow, be it Lightning or just, like a regular bank account or PayPal account or whatever. I don't think that's a very good situation.
Yeah, it's going to wonder like who's going to end up with all the Bitcoin because it's not going to scale like as far as actual control over the keys. Because even if you're thinking like everyone's going to use Lightning, okay, well, but to get onto Lightning it costs $20, like a sign up fee. And the way Lightning works, and it's all a little bit confusing the way things have evolved now, but basically you need you need to send a transaction, on-chain transaction to open a channel, to open a bunch of channels. And in order to receive to a Lightning transaction, you actually have to have money there already. So I can't just open a Lightning wallet with like a Lightning node and just receive Lightning to it. I have to already have Bitcoin there in order to do that. And so other services like centralized services do it for you, where they'll open up a channel, like you say, like the Phoenix or Breeze wallet. They'll open it up for you and cause take a little fee to do that and stuff. And so just getting onto Lightning is going to be just a nightmare. And let's just assume something like Lightning works perfectly, which it won't. A lot of people are starting to just go straight to Lightning. Like they're going to be, they don't even ever touch it on chain. I believe Strike lets you like take your salary in Bitcoin and you can get it straight into Lightning. But like someone else has to do that for you. You can't just receive to a Lightning wallet from Lightning. You have so it's just this weird situation where it's basically all becoming kind of custodial at this point. And
Yeah.
which kind of defeats the point of Lightning, to be honest, because Lightning, while it trends in a centralized direction, it's like it still has some elements of autonomy, which is why there's so much complexity to it. The problem is like if you need to just, if you're doing this like lightning first thing, if you need to have, to trust all these services to do stuff for you, just keep it on exchanges, I guess. Just rely on that. And then I wonder what, like, do we just never transact on chain ever? And then just once a year, or like everyone has their scheduled settlement thing. Like everyone does inter institution transfers on a different ledger, and then just once a year, everyone settles on chain, and it just like, all right, 7 seconds, go, you next,
I
you
don't think
next.
that's viable though. The way
Yeah,
Bitcoin, I mean, if they increase the block size 100x, you could do that. It's just not enough. I feel like the whole Lightning thing is kind of a bait and switch anyway. They
mm-hmm,
sell us on the security of Bitcoin and mining,
mm-hmm,
um, and then want to switch you to a network that has a whole different model and a whole different token. And, you know, yeah, yeah, it's, in my eyes, switching to Lightning is like switching to a whole new coin, except you still have the baggage of Bitcoin.
yeah,
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And as far Bitcoin's whole advantage is network effect. There's
mm-hmm,
no technical reason to use Bitcoin over any number of other coins,
mm-hmm,
except that it's the most well-known and most well-accepted. But Lightning isn't. So why? What
yeah,
advantage is there to using Lightning over Dash or Doge or anything?
yeah.
Uh,
Well, that is a good point, because I don't know what I can do with. I have some Lightning funds and a Lightning wallet. I don't really know what to do with it. The only thing I've ever bought with Lightning was Bit Refill credit, which, by the way, shout out to Bit Refill. If you use the code DCN, you give me some money when you sign up. But Bit Refill, of course, does Dash. It goes instantly with Dash. They're big like Lightning people. They're big. I guess they're like uh, intellectually honest Bitcoin maximalist type people, where they're big into BTC. They love Lightning and all that kind of stuff. They're doing everything they can for that. They still take other coins for when people want to actually use it, but it's it's kind of an insight into the minds of like scaling for Bitcoin. How do people actually use it as the network becomes unusable? Well, first off, like where I go, like say buy a coffee or something like that, and it's just like a couple bucks. I just buy the voucher right there with Dash, and it goes through right away, and I scan it and it works. With Bitcoin, people are they're having Bitcoin balances on Bitrefill, and they're just like chipping away as they buy a gift card at a time, or they buy a larger gift card or whatever, where it doesn't matter as much. And then I remember I got paid from some kind of sign up thing, and they were like, all right, well, we can like credit you with like Bitcoin balances, but we'll give you more if you just get like Bit Refill credit, because it's less of a hassle. I'm like, sure, I'll just take it. I'll use you guys anyway. And so instead of getting actually like paid in Bitcoin, which it's always cool to be paid in crypto, as I have for many years, even dealing with fees or whatever, I was hoping that they would pay me in Lightning, so I could say I'm like using this thing. I could just get to keep testing it out, but it was still like, we'll just give you company credit. I'm like, all right, well, this is how the Bitcoin economy works then. It just like Bitcoin is what's backing everything. It's basically, it is like digital gold in that no one ever transacts with the actual stuff. You always have to trust another institution. So digital gold for me then it could be physical gold. Why not make it physical gold? I mean, Peter Schiff starts to have a little bit of a good point there, where if everyone's transacting with like slips of paper and digital records on top of the underlying asset, no one actually touches it. Why not just use gold?
yeah, you might as well just use a gold stable coin at that point. I think there's a little bit more risk in that,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to trust somebody to have the physical gold, and there's some issues potentially with that could be less of issues with Bitcoin. But of course, stability-wise, gold is far
Yeah.
more stable than Bitcoin, and probably will be for a very long time.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about stuff. Like I'm trying to think about. Oh, there's the Doge. We're waiting for the Doge to make an appearance. Um, that's one of those things where you
Sorry.
start to you start. That's one of those things where you start to try to think about what now are the what now are the actual advantages of using Bitcoin as opposed to just something like gold. It's becoming more expensive to send. It seems like cost of storage might be the only advantage at that point, and a verifiable global supply, like those two things. Like you can see the whole.
You can store it forever for free, essentially. So that's good. But
Yeah.
what I'm concerned about, and part of the reason that I did the, I'm selling all my coins.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, this is an Age of Doge episode. You have the real Doge running around, and then I got the
she's
fake
upset that
pillow.
we're not promoting Dogecoin here.
Yeah.
No, my part of my concern with people buying and storing Bitcoin, and the reason I made the splash statement that I'm getting out of Bitcoin, especially after having promoted it for all these years, is a lot of the people, basically all the people I know, are buying smaller amounts of crypto. They're sticking a little bit of money in crypto here and there, and you got somebody that sticks $100 in Bitcoin. Maybe next year they realize their $100 is worth $200. And then they decide, you know what, I want to spend this. And if they, regardless of whether they decide to spend that coin at a store or to send it to an exchange, at this point, it looks likely that they could end up in a situation where it costs most or all of their coin just to send their coin in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Or the blocks could end up perpetually full if more people actually start using Bitcoin, and there just might not, a transaction at the amount that they have might just never clear the mempool. So then you have small I have to wonder how many small investors in Bitcoin will essentially just lose all their money because it becomes unspendable. And big banks don't care about this. And, big companies that are hedging against the dollar, like Tesla buys $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. That's not a huge risk for them. They don't have to speculate on smaller cryptos. They can just put their foot in the space, and they don't need to care if it costs them thousands of dollars to sell that.
Yeah. Well, we got a super chat. Before we hit that, I did get another live chat comment, which I thought was appropriate before we move on to that, is Bitcoin on-chain bank run. Yeah, what happens if everyone decides to pull their Bitcoin off of exchanges at the same time? Can you imagine the congestion then? That's crazy. Anyway, question to Eric. When you introduce new people to cryptocurrency, what is the first pitch to directly switch to Dash instead of downloading a Bitcoin wallet first? So, like, obviously the standard thing is like, here, how do I get started on Bitcoin? You just say, like, all right, here's how you do it. If you really want something easy, though, we could do Dash instead. Like, you get it. But you do, like, Bitcoin first, then Dash. But, like, what do you do when you try to get them straight to Dash?
At this point, I find the best thing to do is try to get the person to install the phone wallet. And then I send them $1 worth of Dash and show them how fast and quick it is. And then I explain to them that it's still this fast and this cheap if you send it all the way around the world, or if you're sending a really large amount of money. And most people can grasp that. They understand the value in that.
Yeah.
But if you just talk to them about it, they don't really get it. And I, at this point, would never want to introduce anybody to using regular BTC. It's just, it's a nightmare, both in terms of price and in time. I posted a few times about the transaction that kind of was that last straw for me, where I paid $27 in fees and it took 7 hours to hit the blockchain.
Wow.
And that's with me taking the time to Google it, look what the average fee was for Bitcoin to get in the next block, and then placing my fee at slightly higher than that. And if I'm doing that work before I send my transaction to make sure that it goes through right away, and I still end up waiting 7 hours, this is not a user-friendly system. It's not only not acceptable for point of sale, it wouldn't be acceptable for a safety deposit box either. What if you showed up at the bank, paid a $20 fee to get into your box, and then they made you wait 7 hours?
Yeah.
Would that be okay? I mean, even for store of value, this is horribly broken.
Yeah, and I remember a friend recently was trying to withdraw some money from their bank that was, a significant enough amount of cash that it's like the bank wanted to do an in-person meeting on. They're like, whoa, really? Let's sit down. And so it was like a day, is like the next day they scheduled the meeting. So it's like, let's just say it's like a 24-hour transaction time to withdraw a relatively significant amount from the bank. And it's like, okay, what if a Bitcoin, and probably didn't cost them that much extra other than like the time, the gas to go there, or the whatever. But like if you spend like $27 or more on like a transaction, that's got to be, it's got to be crazy. Like, I wonder at what point it starts, because like you have something awesome like Bitcoin, right? So like started out awesome, let's say. You got something like that, and it's got several layers of cool things that it does. And, like verifiable supply, great, limited inflation, great store value, security, decentralization, and, quick confirmations. And, you got all kinds of these types of things. And then at a certain point, it's just like the water level's going up. It's like the fee level, the congestion level, and then like microtransactions dead, basic payments dead, under a certain value dead. And then it's like you're starting to hit the store value range of like you can't efficiently transport it, and then boom. And then at a certain point, of course, that cuts into decentralization, because not anyone can hold it anymore. It's just like only these giant mega institutions and the very rich can actually hold keys, because it's just not feasible. And so you have the decentralization, now it's like gone. And then you hit another point where the actual supply of it becomes questionable. Not because, we can't see the blockchain anymore, but like who owns what, who's moving money around. That you don't see that until like 6-8 months later, if that, because that's all off chain. That's all, in institutions in their own ledgers moving it around. The actual motions of money moving around, you can't actually see that anymore. It doesn't make sense anymore. So yeah, that's the next level. We gotta.
Yeah, I think at some point it turns. Assuming that Bitcoin actually grows and survives in this condition, somehow it turns into something that is good for transfers between large central banks, maybe a few really big companies, and maybe the odd billionaire. But it's essentially useless to regular people.
Yeah, and there will hit a point when just like the last group will just go away. So we got another question. I think the Lightning Network could have been serviceable enough if they didn't pick the most overly complicated and trusted system. How can they speak of decentralization all day long? Pick a scaling solution like that. Where's Ryan? That was a little funny in joke about Ryan making public appearances. But yeah, that's the thing about in order to make Lightning work, it has to be super convoluted. In order to make it work and not have some like layer of trustedness in theory, but then in practice it ends up turning into that way. Also, Lightning, like the 18 months away kind of thing, where Lightning is today and needed to be in like 2016, because in order to decentralize it enough, you need enough on-chain transactions. You need to be able to do an on-chain transaction, say it's 50 cents or $1, to move onto Lightning, open channels and stuff. But now it's just so prohibitively expensive that it's hard to even get off-chain going. So this is kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, it's that throwing away that network effect. I think if Bitcoin had on-chain scaled, it would basically be unstoppable. And it wouldn't matter how much better of technology smaller coins have. I think that the advantages of things like Dash's masternodes would probably be possible to overlook, because Bitcoin would just be so big. And I don't think one coin will ever really dominate. It's easy enough to swap between cryptos that I think a handful will succeed. But I think, Bitcoin would have been the Facebook or the big player in the arena. And despite having a technically worse setup than other coins, it still would have maintained that dominant position. But I feel like that's just been tossed now.
Yeah, and that reminds me of having marketplace competition, of course, helps. And one of the whole arguments for Bitcoin maximalism back in the day was whatever the alts come up with, you can just roll it into Bitcoin if it's any good. Although, obviously that's not happening with the main chain. And of course, the fact that that there's so many visions of Bitcoin out there, it's annoying. It's also good that people have options, and there are Dash. I wouldn't say forks. There are some, but like there's no chain splits from Dash other than this weird safe coin that's like some scam out of China or something that no one uses, no one ever used. But as far as like, there are still multiple Dashes I would call, and of course the big one that they get so pissed off if they heard me calling it that would be Decred. Decred is very similar to Dash in a lot of ways in that it's a meant to be a payment coin with a staked governance model and a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake system that it uses for a second layer of security against 51% attacks, and even has a CoinJoin plus plus, like a built-in CoinJoin implementation to add additional privacy. It's very similar to Dash, but like in a completely different way. It's kind of like it's Bitcoin maximalist if they made Dash. It's literally what it is. And so what I like is they're doing the same things that Dash is doing, but first off, without splitting the community, without being a complete like, oh, we're the real Dash kind of thing. No. And they're also doing, they're trying to go like they have like Lightning in their wallet and stuff because they're trying to go like the off-chain scaling route. They're trying to everyone run their own node route. They're trying to be like the Bitcoin maximalist version of Dash. And that's fantastic because now you have two different approaches to the same base problem, and we get to see what happens. And then of course we have PivX, which is an actual code fork of Dash, even though it didn't split the chain, which is trying to be a purely proof of stake Dash with some more encrypted privacy stuff. And I mean, that seems to not be doing very well. They have like 200 transactions a day or something on chain, so I don't care about that as much. But yeah, it's good to have these different options out there.
They tried to adopt some of the innovations of Dash, which is a shockingly rare thing in this environment. It's astonishing to me how few projects have really tried to copy the things Dash has done. It seems like mostly in favor of trying to focus all their effort on winning over, speculative investors that are just interested in seeing the price goes up. It seems like most crypto projects don't actually care about the project.
Yeah. So when we've been seeing like market share, obviously in both in terms of adoption, like in actual uses of payment, and in terms, of course, market cap. Obviously, when the scaling stuff hit, you saw like Bitcoin's slowly trending down, dominance just go whoomp, fall off a cliff, and then of course everything goes in cycles. So it bounced back up to like 70% or something. I don't remember how high it got, but it got somewhere like around 70 recently, and is now trending downward again, right on the long term. And which if you draw the line across that dominance chart where it falls off a cliff and goes back and then back down, maximalists hate it. They say no, it's trending upwards, but whatever.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah,
market cap is always just a terrible metric, and the thing about Bitcoin especially is a huge number of those coins are permanently lost that get counted in the market cap. So Bitcoin is always going to look way bigger than it is compared to younger coins.
yeah. Now Bitcoin is not the worst of them because you have Bitcoin Cash and then you have Bitcoin SV. And then
yeah.
So each one of those is just more and more lost. And so
yeah, you have all the Bitcoin losses plus all the people who never bothered to split their coins and never will. So it's going to look like they have a huge market cap, but very few of those coins have ever been split or put into circulation.
yeah, I looked at some statistics because you get to see like what percentage of the coin hasn't been moved in a certain amount of years. And to the best of my knowledge, the disparity between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, because you're able to see after a certain number of like 3 years or something like that, it's long enough you can kind of see that there's like a million more coins used, like 1.1 million on Bitcoin Cash that haven't been moved in the last like 3 years. So you could call that like a million, it's hard to really pinpoint that, but it's like at least a million extra are just like lost.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell when people split at least, and I think there was a site at one point that displayed that just in a little bit of text, and I don't know if that's still around, but it is a really interesting thing to look at because I think it does give you some insight into what the true circulating supply is. But market cap is just such an apples and oranges comparison, and it always will be.
Yeah, and so now we're talking about like how far this goes. Like, when is this going to actually flip? Because the market cap obviously up, and now it's like trending downward. Bitcoin's still number one by a huge margin. Ethereum is number two by a huge margin as well. And then you have a whole bunch of other things. When we talk about usage, so like I remember there was a time when like a lot of things just took Bitcoin, or they had a shapeshift plugin for altcoins or whatever. And then it was like Bitcoin and Ethereum and then like Litecoin. And now it seems like there's either a, 10 coins that they take, or which, thankfully includes Dash, or it's like the five, or it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and then like USDC or some nonsense like that. So
Yeah.
basically, you've seen a little diversification of that, and you've seen like transaction explosions but like for the most part, there hasn't been this whole flippening of like everyone's using everything else. And, it seems like there's been moderate growth across a lot of different coins, but not explosive as far as transactions.
Yeah, speculation is still orders of magnitude larger
Hmm.
than actual usage on every chain, and I don't think things are really going to flip until usage takes off on some of the actually usable coins. Because right now, Bitcoin and Ethereum are both unusable as far as doing transactions goes. And I've been using Bitcoin for my business for some time to purchase products to import, and it was actually the cheapest way to do it for a while, but I can't possibly justify it now.
Yeah, now it would have.
So my business is gone, not because of any political feelings I have towards how Bitcoin is, but just practical ones. It doesn't make economic sense for me to use Bitcoin anymore.
And they don't let you use other coins.
Um, Not yet. If I continue to buy those same items, it'll probably just have to be through the banking system,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So we got another question here, which was many BTC fans have become so delusional about their coin that you have to consider them a cult or at least clinically ignorant. Do you think there's a a talking point with Bitcoin maximalists, or is there a point talking to them, or do we just wait until one dash equals one BTC in terms of price? Well, I'll let you take a stab at this one first.
Sure. I don't think most of the maximalists actually. I mean, most people investing in most things don't know anything about what they're investing in, whether it's
Hmm.
crypto or the stock market or anything else, and they promote the thing that they're invested in because they have a vested interest in it. And if you talk to them very long, you realize they have a very shallow understanding, if any, of the company or the coin or whatever it is. As far as the people who are more deeply involved in the project, you can theorize there, I guess, but maybe they have a motivation that makes sense from their perspective, or maybe they have a sense of hubris and they don't think they can lose. But I don't think convincing any of those people to come use Dash is really a good use of time. I think that's one of the you see the Bitcoin Cash community do that too, spend almost all of their effort trying to fight with Bitcoin and convince people to use BCH instead of BTC.
Hmm.
But honestly, anybody who's an actual user and tries to use BTC is going to immediately know that that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't need to pitch that. So you're kind of wasting your time. The people we need to convert into Dash users are people who do not care at all about
Hmm.
Bitcoin, who aren't using Bitcoin, who aren't using crypto, who don't understand. We need to find real world use cases where a person can take something that's currently costing them $100 to do, and we can make it cost 50 or 10 or 0.
Yeah.
Those are our customers. Uh,
So that's a interesting. That's always been a difficult thing for me because obviously I've been using Dash. I've been using crypto in some capacity to buy and sell things, whatever, for about 8 years, and Dash was like 5 of those years, like 2016 to now. So I've been trying. Like it's easy because if the people know me as the crypto guy, and then it's easy enough to just say, here, download a wallet, use it, yay, okay. You kind of need that like one-on-one connection where everyone's just like newbie, like, what do I buy? Like, what do I do with this? What do I do with that? In fact, I read a very loose script for a video I'm going to do next week about what do I do when people ask me about if they should buy Bitcoin? Like, what do I actually answer? That's a complicated question, but I think that the usability problems of crypto as a whole, including modern day Dash, are maybe a little too high to get just people that aren't into crypto at all on board. And so like usernames and stuff like that, I think that's where you can start to actually get more than a few stragglers from the basic pool of people, when you're like, oh, look, you can just do here to there. And oh, you can sync up your friends and contacts and stuff in your payments, and you can use that on a social network as well. The same one as this, and then you sync up with the other thing, and like use your password manager. It's all under the same thing. That's when I think you're going to start to get a lot. You're going to have a tool you could take to the normies. It's not just the regular old Dash wallet. It's like, oh, this is actually something I can use.
Yeah, I don't know if I really feel like usernames themselves are going to sell anybody, but I think that things that people could build on top of Dash platform that leverage usernames could be our killer apps for Dash.
Yeah.
Things like, a social network is possible, a meetup app, something that we can integrate directly, especially if I would love to see a decentralized market that's actually good. I had hoped that OpenBazaar would develop into something for so long, and it never quite happened. But how hard would it be for somebody to create an app where you could just drop stuff for sale on on Dash platform, and if somebody wants to buy it, you could pop over to your Dash wallet, pay, and it would drop in your shipping information and whatever else, and you could have reviews. And I feel like a fairly minimal featured version of that would be possible to implement on Dash, and could really be meaningful with names that you have this meta information you could tie to that you could build a system around. I would love to see something laid out like Etsy, but on Dash platform. I think
that would be just pretty cool. Before we go into down that rabbit hole, we got another question here. Hi, Joel and Eric. This is from One Time. Hi, One Time. The only use for BTC is for elites to store value long term, just because of its network effect and reputation. But Dash is way better, more useful, innovative, agile, upgradable, and sustainable. Dash is the future. Well, thanks for the pump on that one. The pumpy talk. Realistically, because I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, I don't think I know anything, and I don't think anyone knows anything about anything in life. On a greater philosophical level, everyone can just tell about their journey. Well, this is what I know from my experience, and not like, well, I know the answers. So when people say like, what should you use? I was like, use Bitcoin, it works great. And then when it didn't work great, I was like, I don't know, man. And then it was like, well, use Dash, it works great, it's going to take over everything. And then I was like, well, it's taken a while to take over everything. And now people are just saying, well, if this works so well, but Bitcoin doesn't, when is there going to be a flippening of stuff? And it's, to be fair, it's not just Dash. It's a very hungry pack of competitors. Even Litecoin, which I don't think is going anywhere, but if everyone switches to Litecoin, it has like a little bit of time before, their scaling problems start happening, and then you switch to the next. Just like Ethereum. Everyone's like, we'll just use Ethereum, and then that loaded up. My personal opinion is it won't be until most people don't have Bitcoin. Like most people in let's just say the US, let's take that as an example. Most people in the US do not own any Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. Like the majority. There's still a lot of people who do now. It's like starting to be random normies on my friends list. I'm like, wait, you're buying Doge with the GameStonks thing? Like, whoa, you? Okay. Like you're starting to see the exposure. I think it's going to be everyone has Bitcoin before they start saying this sucks. I think it has to be that Bitcoin has to become mainstream so that then the non-mainstream coins can get enough attention to get actually used. I think before Bitcoin is mainstream, I don't see people piling on a new thing. They have to wrap their head around Bitcoin first, have some, then try to move it, and they're like, oh, this sucks, and then they go down. That's my personal thing. What do you think?
I disagree.
Mm.
I don't think people need to understand it at all. People don't understand fractional reserve
Yeah.
banking, and they use it all the time. People don't understand really anything about how the monetary system works. They don't
Hmm.
understand how PayPal works, and they use PayPal. They don't understand how Cash App works, and they use Cash App. I think, I would love it if everybody learned how Dash worked and appreciated it, but ultimately, I don't think that matters. For example, I've been a big proponent of the ATM, crypto ATM business for a long time, and the general response in the community, in the crypto community, is that ATMs are dumb because they cost way too much. Why wouldn't you just go to an exchange? It doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And for us, it doesn't. But for the people that use the Dash or the Bitcoin or whatever ATMs, they're not us. They don't have Coinbase accounts. They don't know how
Hmm.
to make a Coinbase account. Most of them don't even know how to pronounce the word Bitcoin. So why are they using a Bitcoin ATM?
Yeah.
Because to them, it isn't a crypto. They don't care that it's decentralized. They don't care how the underlying mechanisms work. It's just a thing that's kind of like MoneyGram, but maybe is slightly cheaper,
Hmm.
you know, or it goes to somewhere MoneyGram doesn't go, or Western Union doesn't go, or yeah, that's what it is. And it doesn't matter if they pay 7 or 10%. Um, but that's important because if to us it looks really stupid and inefficient, it's improving something for somebody. It's reducing friction. It's enabling more people to access, um, to have the ability to move money around, and that's an important thing. Um, so I think that I wouldn't be surprised that if at some point a majority of the people using Dash don't even know that they're using Dash. They're using an app that is transferring value
Yeah.
over the Dash network or tokens over the Dash network in some form. Maybe they know it's called Dash.
Hmm.
Maybe Dash as a denominated value becomes a thing. But they won't really know anything about it. They certainly, I don't think the majority of the population will ever understand how a blockchain works, or, it'll be the same as phones. Most people don't know how their phones work.
Yeah.
They don't have any concept of, they know that somehow data wirelessly goes between it, but they don't really know the difference between Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or cell phone signals. You know, it's
Yeah.
just, it's a thing that somebody has shown them how to use, so they use it.
So, like, my kind of comparison with that, um, like, I remember a time, you know, I didn't have a phone of any kind until like relatively recently, until like the last 12, 13 years, right? And I remember growing up on the ranch in Mexico where we have like had like a radio phone and all, like, ghetto as anything. But like I remember when the iPhone came out, like tablets were the ones I never understood. Like, why does anyone need a tablet? Like, I was like a computer guy. Like, ever since I was like 4 years old, I was like, my dad was a Hewlett Packard programmer in the 80s and stuff. And so I would like grow up with like a computer. But then I didn't get what was the point of a smartphone. It's just like, okay, well, I have the phone I could call people with, and then I have the computer that does the cool shit. And then this is this stupid, like, really limited kind of computer. It doesn't do anything I want it to. It just kind of does some app. What's an app? Why can't I just open it in the browser? I didn't get it. And so I think the iPhone I had to take the world by storm before anyone would like use an Android. Like Android, I believe, again, this is, I don't want to start any trouble here, but I think that Android's a superior system in a lot of ways. Maybe not for super newbies who like can't figure out how to keep viruses off their devices or whatever. But like for the most part, it does what iOS does with more capabilities, and it's like a lot less expensive. But I think you had to have like, everyone has an iPhone, and then it's like, okay, well, it's like an iPhone. See, it's like an iPhone, but it's like different. It's like better. It's cheaper, and it's like, all right, I'll
Well, so here's the thing though with the iPhone is that it
hmm
worked.
yeah, and it still
You know,
works. The UX is
um,
still probably
Bitcoin
better.
doesn't
Yeah.
work. So you can't really introduce people to crypto with Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Dogecoin maybe. It is mostly functional.
Hmm.
I say mostly because I failed to buy a pair of Dogecoin socks with it because the transaction timed out 3 times in a row.
Was this
So
like last couple months?
yeah, they didn't.
Well,
Actually, getting your app to connect to the nodes is not great.
funny enough, when I bought this Doge pillow here, they were offering something like a 20% discount if you pay with Doge. But I bought it with Dash anyway. That was many years ago. But it's like, yeah, it's like the does it work or not kind of thing. And it's kind of funny because Dogecoin has something like 30 or 40,000 transactions a day, or like 1/5 less, or less than 1/5 of what Bitcoin does, and it like can't scale. So it's like all the, or not
Yeah,
can't scale, but like it has some node problems and stuff. But whatever.
yeah, and it's amazing to see the disconnect too. I watching during this latest bubble up, you have people who are just going rabid
Hmm.
about Dogecoins not having a block or a limit for how many new coins get mined,
Hmm.
and people are just repeating this stuff on social media like
Someone heard
cap the
their name
limit.
mentioned.
Like, you realize Dogecoin really doesn't have any developers. Maybe you should work on that in general before demanding something of the developers that don't exist. And I know there's
Yeah.
some people working on it now to try to get more nodes up and connected better and make it work. But we'll see if that continues after the hype dies down.
So there was a live chat thing I just saw that, not the super chat, unfortunately, but would Dash be able to scale to a level where all the world would be able to use it? And the short answer I would say is probably yes. Thankfully, my good friend Dr. Darren Tapp is a blockchain researcher, and he's figured out that with current technology, i.e., exthin blocks for exthin block propagation, you can get up to, I think, 10 megabyte Dash blocks, which is equivalent to 40 megabyte Bitcoin blocks with a very low orphan rate. So it just works. And that's like a little over half of PayPal's current transaction volume. And that's easily. And then some other research into the velocity protocol and things like that says like much higher. So I probably think that if definitely by the time Dash takes off, like in usage, like not just the 30 or so thousand transactions a day today, but when it really starts taking off, I think that it'll be able to scale just fine in the end.
Yeah, well, I'm a masternode operator, and
Mm-hmm.
so I know what it costs to run a node. I know what resources processing the number of transactions we have takes on the server. And a couple of years, or at least a year ago, was I put together a spreadsheet where I just kind of extrapolated the costs. What if the volume on Dash's network doubles every year until we're
Mm-hmm.
past Visa volume? And then I looked up the costs of scaling my servers for bandwidth and memory and storage space up to that point. And I assumed an average transaction fee of a penny. Um, and it's still profitable all the way up. Even if, and it's profitable almost all the way up, even at a $40 price point for Dash.
Mm.
At $1,000 price point for Dash, you're still making money at Visa level.
Mm.
And it'd probably be way higher. Realistically, if Dash was doing Visa level transactions, Dash would be tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, per coin.
Yeah,
Uh, Probably a lot more because there
of
is more
course.
limited. So like Bitcoin's already 45,000, and it's used for essentially nothing. And there's more Bitcoin. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real question. And my numbers assumed that there was zero improvement in the cost to performance ratio in computer parts over time,
Mm.
which, whether or not you believe in Moore's law, it's obviously not going to be zero improvement.
Of course.
Uh, you can look at what is in the pipeline now from various technology companies, from AMD, from TSMC, Intel, and it's obvious that we are getting, it's going to double and then double and then double. Exactly what year we get those, that doubling effect by is somewhat variable. Um, but I think looking at looking at these numbers, you can determine with a very high degree of confidence that Dash is not going to have a problem sustaining itself at scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like, and I did some interview with Darren not too long ago, where I was asking about other scalability considerations that are unique to Dash, mainly instant send and chain locks, and like much do they scale? Because I remember there was a big stress test, not big one, but a little one, like a few months back or something, or a year ago. Time flies. That basically there was some failure on either chain locks or instant send or both, and then they figured out there was a bug and they patched that, and all et cetera, et cetera. And basically I was just saying like, yeah, so sure you can scale to Visa levels, but is every transaction gonna be locked in and confirmed instantly like it is at these levels? And basically his answer, the short version of the answer is yes, that it's the instant send quorum or chainlock's quorum part of masternode. What a masternode's actually, the usage of it is much less resource intensive than the actual just block propagation part. It would be much easier to do, basically, is what he's saying. Like, it's like almost like the special transaction feature part of Dash is like almost like an afterthought as far as like, can it scale compared to just the main, can you get all those transactions through?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm certainly no expert as to how those systems work in software, but I would imagine that on Dash or any other Bitcoin-like blockchain, the main issue is going to be moving the blocks around.
Yeah.
That's the data you're transferring.
And then, of course, we have platform and all the stuff that it does, all the state transitions, all the data that's stored, all that kind of stuff, which is a completely separate consideration. I think it should probably scale just fine. There's everything I hear about platform chain to where actually like all the little moving back and forth of bits of data and updating your profile pic or whatever. First off, it's just a much more pruned version. You don't have to have all that data of like, first off, you can just erase past transactions, right? You can just prune it over time. And
Yeah.
I heard some ideas, which obviously could be a little, obviously this is not in the plan currently, but of like having concurrently processing like a certain part of the master nodes are only focusing on this part of platform chain and the others are not. So it's kind of like you shard what you're doing, and that seems like difficult to get them all to sync up, but maybe it's like a roll up type thing, like with loop ring and stuff like that, where
I imagine there's a few ways you could do it. Maybe you could have yet another layer of different servers that do certain things.
Yeah.
That connect to Dash, and it might not even have to be part of Dash. It could be a separate network that decides they want to link their databases or their cloud storage system to Dash and allow it to be purchased through Dash platform.
Yeah, and the cool part is, from what Anton was telling me a few weeks ago, it seems like the platform level of things is completely separate from layer one, as in if all that stuff goes down, it's like it doesn't affect it. And also the thing I thought was cool is once you've already friended people, when you've already made contacts on platform, if platform goes down for whatever reason, you can still send layer one dash to those contacts that you've already established. You might not be able to make new ones during the time that platform's down, but all your contacts you can still send and receive to no problem, which I thought was something that, you can't say the same when like the Wells Fargo app goes down, and you can't like, or Venmo goes down. You can't do the same.
Yeah. There's definitely some unknowns with what exactly scaling Dash platform will look like, but let's compare it to the competition. Let's compare it to how Ethereum is scaling by putting things on chain, or even like Bitcoin Cash's memo cache service. Every tweet is on the blockchain.
Yeah. And
how is that going to scale? It seems really unnecessary.
And like I do use Memo, and I believe like recently they crossed like the 1 million transaction threshold, and I calculated back to when they were using it, and they've been doing an average of over 1,000 transactions a day, and that's on like the Memo. So I'm not trying to talk smack, but it's really ghetto looking. Like it does not look polished as a social network. And if that many people are using it, there's like 1,000 transactions a day. But then that's maybe not a lot of people, but like 1,000 transactions. Can you imagine if like how many times like I have tweeted about a dozen or so times today at least. Like I put like 2 or 3 like main tweets and then answering people. It's got to be up to like 20 or so. So imagine like if 1 million people, that's like 20 million extra transactions on chain from just 1 million people doing like some basic small Twitter activity a day. I don't know how that's going to scale. And the funny enough named noise.cash has been attributed to the big rise in Bitcoin Cash transactions recently, to where one of their big investor people, Mark DeMazel, threw a whole bunch of money behind it to like incentivize people using it, and then a bunch of people are doing this whole social network and tipping each other back and forth, and with this big infusion of free money right now, and that's what's pumping it up to like over BTC transaction volume levels. And then you see a lot of people like Roger, which I like Roger a lot. I respect him. He's been on not the Dash podcast, but he's been on this channel a few times and stuff, saying like, oh, it's processing more than Bitcoin right now. See, it works, and it can scale. And it's a great point. At the same time, it's not really being used more than Bitcoin now. It's sort of like artificial pumping the numbers on that level right now. But
yeah, it's a different kind of transaction.
Yeah. So like Dash being I like the efficient way, in my view. Again, I'm not an engineer or anything. I like the idea of like the main chain's financial transactions. Anyone should be able to send a transaction. Should be affordable, under a cent or around a cent for a transaction fee. Everything works. And then rather than just let's throw everything we can on it, i.e. Ethereum style or the other Bitcoin fork style, it's like, well, let's do things smart here, guys. Let's make everything a lot more. Let's like fortify the chain with some extra stuff like instant and chain locks, and then let's add an extra layer for all the inevitable million data transactions that are going to happen, so that we just don't run into the scaling problem. Or if we do, it won't affect people's money. It's like the safe, pocket protector, kind of like polo shirt, look like you work at Best Buy kind of like attitude that makes Dash so boring to a lot of crypto people. It's just like, well, you take security of people's money seriously.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how each network has done that. So Bitcoin has taken and moved the financial transactions to a second layer. Ethereum is doing everything's just on the blockchain. And it seems like Bitcoin Cash is kind of the same way. Everything's on the blockchain. And Dash is doing the opposite of Bitcoin, where we're keeping all the financial transactions on the blockchain, but we're making an off-chain storage for the applications, for the things that are a little bit less important than tracking monetary value. You need that chain for validating who has what money, and you want that. But there's a lot of application data that just isn't that important. There's a 3 different philosophies there, I see.
Yeah, and who knows if someday there will be a need for another chain. I could have sworn there was one project I heard about recently that was running like 3 or so chains. And I mean, this gets beyond my technical ability to really understand how that all works together. And then you got, of course, projects like Horizon, which are meant the main chain. They're actually removing their encrypted privacy from the main chain because they're going to be just a sidechain platform. You just lock up Zen in different things and then issue different side chains, do a million things. And I don't know if that's like a interesting way forward, but I think it's going to like, I don't understand. Like, so Ethereum cannot scale presently. They're doing ETH 2.0, which is going to start with like just proof of stake, which supposedly makes stuff more efficient. And there's a bunch of layer 2 stuff, and then they're going to pursue sharding and a whole bunch of other things. And I would try to like almost start over and like split the chains if I were like not make 2 different Ethereums, but like just realize you screwed up, right? You're throwing everything on chain. It filled up really fast. There's cats flowing through and blocking people's money. Put the cats somewhere else. Don't just make it all like super efficient. Like make more lanes on that highway. Like put like a carpool lane. Like just put the cats lane, the cats and all that nonsense lane, and then like leave people's money lane here. Because the only thing I've ever used Ethereum for is tokens or Ethereum itself. And I have some Ethereum and I want to move it around and I just can't because there's too many cats flying through it or whatever else. And like if the cats were somewhere else, I could just still move my money, but I can't. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting on some Ethereum, and I think it has promise, the idea, but my confidence is just dropping in it as far as what will they be able to effectively scale this platform. It seems like it's really overcomplicated compared to how the Dash platform solution to this, and I've gone through and looked at, okay, what are the competitors to Ethereum? Are any of them storing their data off chain, more similar to Dash platform, or do they have a substantially different solution that seems viable? And I don't see it. I don't see the Ethereum competitor, and I don't know if at some point Dash platform could be the Ethereum competitor. It's unclear to me exactly how much of what Ethereum does or how much of the potential things for Ethereum could be done on Dash.
Yeah, it's also an interesting situation because Ethereum is like Bitcoin was like the white paper is extremely clear what Bitcoin was supposed to be. It's supposed to be inflation resistant money, censorship resistant money that you can use specifically on the internet, right, to make transactions. And it's like anything that came out of Bitcoin that wasn't that, like, do you remember Counterparty and like they used that piggybacked on Bitcoin transactions to like do tokens and stuff, and there's a bunch of different layers that you could like move tokens on Bitcoin, and there's like obviously some like microtransaction stuff or sending data, like all that stuff that came separate from the main vision. It was just, it is what it is, right? Now, Ethereum, I feel like no one knew what it was for when they built it almost. Like, they just thought, we can do cool stuff. Here's some like pie in the sky examples, but you come out with Ethereum and no one's using it for what its intended purpose was, because its intended purpose was everything. Just do everything on Ethereum. Everything's going to run on Ethereum. And then, like, I conceptualized as a noob what a smart contract could do. And I was like, whoa, this is going to change the world. And then you're thinking, like, what do you actually need a smart contract for? And the first thing is like, well, let's issue tokens so we can scam people out of ICO money. Okay, well, that's the first thing. And then, well, cats. Okay, that's the second thing. And then now it's like DeFi is the next thing. It's just like to gamble on other tokens, but like a self-executing thing. And I would like tokens, I guess they're a real use case, but they're not like a Ethereum. You don't need Ethereum for tokens. For like DeFi, I think is one of the first big, and this is like, feel free, anyone who wants to light me up in the comments if you are watching this either now or later and tell me how much of an ignorant person I am. But like, I feel like DeFi is one of the first real use cases for Ethereum. It's like, okay, well, this does need to be on a chain like this. You do need to do that kind of stuff. And it's still kind of like very gambly. But anyway, I think that's one thing where I kind of hope the Dash platform shines is the intended purpose was to facilitate usernames and contact lists to make stuff easier to use. And that's like a very real immediate use case with, of course, the Dash Pay wallet, the flagship of this whole thing. But then, like, then you can do cool stuff. So this might be a good opportunity to go into the cool stuff built on top of platform that either is being built or could be built that you're excited about. So first off, what do you think? What are you most excited about that's going to be built on Dash, either already is or is in the process of it, or you think would be cool to make on it?
Well, I'll tell you what I'd love to see. I would love to see some sort of social media type, like even if it's just like Telegram built on Dash, Dash usernames and Dash payments, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
If you had I mean, just in general, I would love to see something compete with Meetup.com. What they charge is insane for basically just a list of like, here's an event in your area, how a phone app have geolocation, and start with Dash meetups and expand. Marketplace, I think, is the holy grail. It's a lot of work to build a good marketplace, but if somebody could make a marketplace as easy as Etsy, build it on Dash platform, have it take Dash payments and make it nice and easily usable in a phone app. I think that would be amazing. Um, that would be probably the thing that I would really want to use. I would sell on it. I would buy things on it. I think that'd be awesome. Integrate it with retail retail locations.
That's got to be the hardest thing.
If you build a little kernel and can find a way to market it to people, preferably outside of crypto. I think that's a big problem with these like DeFi and everything is they're just marketing it to crypto people to move crypto tokens around to get other crypto tokens. You're just doing things inside your own little playground.
It's like, really yo, world. Dog, I heard you like crypto. So I'm going to have wrap your crypto in a crypto so you can trade it with the crypto while you're just
and
like.
Then you can stake that for some of this crypto.
Yeah.
Well, what do I do with that crypto? Well, why it's going up in value. Oh, why is it going up in value? Because more people are doing it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice, but can we solve a real world problem here? We have this global computer, and what are we doing with it?
Yeah, I'm waiting. Well, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for wrapped Lightning Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. That would be completely moronic. But so as far as the things I'm looking, obviously, username payment app thing is what really works for me. That's the number one, and obviously it's the big thing people talk about. And I don't think that alone is going to make any waves, to be honest. But I think it's like an important underpinning. If you don't have that, you're kind of screwed. Because like I've been to, I organize crypto meetups here in New Hampshire, and the last few times I've had people come and say like, oh, you should try this like hand cash app. You can just have your little handle, you can send to your contacts and all this kind of stuff. And even though it's all like a centralized system and things like that, it's just like, it is so much easier to where like, oh, I got all the servers in this restaurant set up with hand cash things. So when you want to tip them, you just send it to their handle, and then all right. I mean, that's great. It's not a great solution like, Dash usernames, but like if you don't have that, you're leaving the normies behind. It's like a minimum requirement.
Yeah, I think it's important. And I missed one, which is probably the bigger one is I want to see the ID system leveraged. Like, can we make Dash replace the login with Facebook thing?
Yeah.
I don't want to log in Facebook. I don't want Facebook. I don't want everything posting to my Facebook page or drawing, I don't need Facebook keeping track of everywhere I'm going and selling me dumb stuff on their ads,
That's exactly
why a QR code on the page, I scan it, it gives, it's something on my phone tells me if I, do I want to give this site my email address or my home address or, which information it's requesting. Kind of like when you install an app, I'm like, does it want to use your camera? Well, is this an app I'm taking a picture with? Then I can log in. Like there's a ton of these news sites, especially where like, I'd like to read the article. It's free if you sign up, but I don't really want to sign up. But if I could hold up my Dash wallet, scan the QR code, tap, rather than filling out all their forms and then going back to my article, if I could just do that and see the article, I'd even be willing to pay a small amount to Dash. Have an ID system, have a system like that where you can just pass through for little pieces of Dash or build it into a browser. This is where I thought Brave was going with basic attention token, but it seems to just want to pay people to watch ads, which I have no interest in. Why can't I pay small amounts to never see ads or to never get any, or to get past paywalls? That I would use.
Yeah, that's the thing that like it's the elephant in the room that I'm glad that whenever I hear other people who didn't just hear it from me talking about it, I'm glad to hear it is like the decentralized digital identities are the number one use case for Dash in the future. And it's kind of huge. It's kind of like decentralized money, but decentralized money is now a dime a dozen, kind of. Like everyone's doing some variant of that. But decentralized digital identities to where you have an actual like username. And like I've been going into the crypto usernames pretty deep because I want to know what like the competition is, or if something's better than Dash, jump ship from Dash to that or whatever, But like I want to see what else is out there, and most of them are just so garbage at this point. Which I'm glad they're starting. They're trying. Like Dash has been thinking about this since 2015. I think people started thinking about it in like 2018, 2019, and are like, all right, well let's do a .eth domain, and it makes it easier to resolve to a static address. And then, oh, well, this other one does this basic thing. And it's all very like kind of like tack on. But like no one has decentralized username and contact lists and then extra data associated with that. So you have the one unified login everywhere. And I think it was kind of where people were talking about like the login with Google or Facebook type thing. What I believe it was Alex Werner was telling me about in the last podcast to last year, I think. He was saying that when you're doing that, you don't actually have all your data with Facebook or Google, and then every website draws from that when you do it. It just, all it does is it just turns over your data to the website when you log in with Facebook. So now it just copies it over. Now they have it. Now the other person has it, which means if any one of these websites gets hacked, all your data that you gave Facebook, the hacker has that on any one of these websites. Whereas with the login with Dash thing is you get to actually log in with your Dash ID. You don't copy the information over to the website. It just accesses it from the secure Dash network. So if the website gets hacked, you don't lose all your data because they don't have it. They're just, using it with Dash as it goes. And the other thing is having money involved in everything I think is a way of the future where it's just so clunky to use money online. It's always been clunky to use money online. And Facebook did a really cool thing in not only having a messenger, which is one of the top most used, I guess, messengers in the world, in their social network, because you're like interacting with people in the commons, and then you message that person right where you're at. But also where you can send people money through Facebook Messenger. In fact, the story I like to tell for a long time is some local state legislator in New Hampshire got busted for, I don't remember what it was. Well, it was some sketchy stuff, but one of the things he was doing, he was infamous for sort of openly selling weed before it was decriminalized, like to his like legislator colleagues. And one person I knew actually like paid him for the said weed, said at that time criminal weed, on Facebook Messenger. Like they were doing their weed deals on Facebook Messenger and sending the money. It's just like, no, like you're the worst criminal. It's like you're the worst pirate I've ever heard of, right? It's like one of those things. But the point is, it's so accessible. It's just you reach, oh, what do you have here? And having your money in whatever, like you're tweeting at people and someone just says like, hey, look, I created, like let's say this guy, the guy who CryptoGifts_EN sells this little Dash whiskey set, right? And I've showcased it a million times, right? So much free publicity, you should pay me and send me more freebies. But let's just say you reach out to him on Twitter, you see him on Twitter, it says, hey, I'd like to have one, and you can just pay him right there. You don't have to let's take this somewhere else. Let's do an email chain. Let's do a card information through a processor. What if you could just send him the money right there on Twitter? And
yeah, or you could tweet you a QR code that's got the product number, the price, and everything embedded. You snap it with your Dash wallet on your phone, and it's paid and shipping to you because your address is on the metadata or whatever.
Yeah.
That should be a thing. Yeah.
Having that all together, and then just any other thing you can imagine, like for example with YouTube, right? I don't get any money from YouTube because I don't have a bank account, and that's what YouTube does. But I have this like Cointree hack that I use for this like live chat. Like people want to talk to me live, and there's a big, you see this busy live chat right now going on, and some of these comments I'm paying attention to, some I'm selectively not. But if they could be money, I'm definitely paying attention to them. That's what the super chat thing's for. And if you just have it right in there, boom, you can just send it. It works. More things with money involved would be great. And so as far as the things that are actually being built on Dash that excite me, obviously the username wallet is like the bare minimum. You have to have one. It's not like it's taking it anywhere new or anywhere awesome, but it's like it's a minimum. Then the thing I'm most excited about is a project called Djembe, which is a Dash Twitter, which I may or may not have been significantly involved in trying to plan the future UX and stuff of, because I think this is too important to just like see how it turns out. And because of what Dash can do, there's a whole bunch of extra awesome features you can kind of plug in there. But like imagine that you got your Twitter that's all with your decentralized login. that you have encrypted and end-to-end encrypted private messaging right in there, and you can send money around too. And if the whole thing goes down, you still keep not just your data and your money, but your contacts and everything. Like, that's already huge. Next, there's something called Springboard being built that I really am interested in. Now, it's basically a fork of what Bitcoin Cash has with the flipstarter.cash, which is like a basic crowdfund thing that once you reach a threshold, it gets paid out. If it doesn't reach the threshold in the prescribed amount of time, then everyone gets refunded. So you don't donate like a bunch of money and then it's not enough to finish the project, you just lose your money. But one thing I noticed, and I posted something like this, I think it was yesterday in some private message, that there's a Flipstarter site where some guy randomly runs around the internet, and whenever he sees one of these, he like puts it on the site. He like manually aggregates all of these. And it's like, and he's like, I do this volunteer, please donate so I could keep running around manually aggregating. Well, with platform, of course, you would have it so you don't have to manually aggregate it. You could just query all flip starters. There you go. You got all of these springboards, as they're called, and you can just raise money and also connected, of course, your username and your wallet, so you don't have to like get out your separate thing. It's like all integrated. So imagine if you're on Twitter, you're just like, someone says, oh man, I just, sob story, my mom got cancer, or we need something for the treatments. Oh no. And then they put their little springboard thing inside of Djembe, right? Inside their Twitter thing. They put their little GoFundMe equivalent, and you can just start boop, boop, just start like donating to it all in the same login. And I'm really hoping we can get some kind of a front end to the library blockchain built with Dash, because their biggest problem is they don't have an easy way of getting people credits, like to actually incentivize videos and stuff. And if you could just have a Dash username login thing, and that you could just top up, like exchange credits back end to kind of do that, that would be a huge thing. And there's like so many of these kinds of things. Of course, like a Reddit version would be nice, because people don't only like Twitter versions. And just all that running on the same network. And with each new, that's another thing, password manager. Imagine like a Dash password manager that you get to use with this. And someone's working on that right now. Someone's working on an encrypted messenger that uses the Signal protocol. So with all this kind of stuff, you get a ticket into the decentralized digital identity that is Dash. And you get to go use your money and log into all these things together. And you have one recovery phrase that backs up your entire identity. You can even have sub-identities, like your username, your professional and your personal one. And just all one 12-word phrase keeps everything for you. So if you ever get everything destroyed and then you just leave and like you're like wash up on a boat somewhere, you have a little piece of paper, you can just get your whole life back. Like, that's something, your whole digital life back. It's like, I think that's something that the market will value immensely.
Yeah, I can't wait to use those kind of apps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in linking that all to Dash identity and payment system. Because right now it's really fractured. I don't even know how many messaging apps I have open right now on my desktop. I've got Discord, I've got Twitter, I've got Telegram, I've got Steam and Signal and Keybase. There's like 2 people on each one that I know.
Yeah, I know.
But I can't do much in between them. There's no, a couple of like I've never actually tried to send payments over Facebook or Google or anything. I don't know how that works.
That's another thing that reminds me. That is not being built yet, but it would be awesome, is a Dash Discord, like a decentralized, maybe like a Rocket Chat fork or something like that. But so you could use your same Dash username to log into a Discord system, and then you don't have to have a tip bot because it's all integrated with the payments anyway. And because Discord works just fine right now, but they're starting to censor people. Like, they're starting to shut down servers that, do specific things and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's coming. It's coming for all of us.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was a more or less uncensorable one, or at least one where, if whatever portal, whoever made the app decided to, obviously whoever makes front end apps for this is going to have to block some stuff. But if the underlying network doesn't discriminate, then somebody else can make a front end that doesn't block the thing, and you can still use the network. So that's powerful. But I think just given how many different, I mean, if you include like the emails and Slack and all these other things, I must have like 12 messaging things open right now. There's obviously room for a lot of competitors in this space. I think if Dash can add some value by linking it to other features in the network, maybe you have identity, you have payments, you have maybe data storage. I think that's something that could really give Dash a decent edge in that space.
Yeah. So it might be that like everyone's thinking you need to buy some Bitcoin so you escape inflation, and then that's what they do because that's what people got to do. Keep it simple, whatever they've heard of, and then they start signing up on their portal to decentralized applications is not probably going to be Ethereum because that's too complicated. You don't need it to be that complicated, right? And also there's scaling problems.
And it costs just as much as Bitcoin.
Yeah, that too. But like their decentralized Twitter, their decentralized like Messenger, there are all those kinds of things are all run on this other thing. And then eventually that's kind of the in I can see as far as hitting the mainstream directly and not being like Bitcoin doesn't work. What Bitcoin does but works, instead of like Bitcoin then that. Like no one has a good, like after this whole deplatforming of everyone kind of thing, all the alternative social media platforms suck. They're all bad. I'm on all of them and they all suck. Some of them are worse than others.
Yeah.
But they all suck. And if you make a good one that people can use, then you win.
Well, I've seen ones that are okay. I mean, I actually didn't mind Google Plus, how it was set up, but even Google can compete because you can't just do the same thing as Facebook and expect to win. You got to do something different.
Yeah.
Or like, I kind of like the MeWe one. It's a really nice interface and it's refreshing to just see what people post instead of like algorithm filter, but they have no hope. It has less people than Facebook. People are always, I mean, unless Facebook just becomes completely unusable, which they seem to be moving towards. But
yeah.
Facebook has to throw it away. That's the only way anybody else wins that.
Yeah. And also, like the alt networks there's not enough people on them, and the people that are on them are the same old like loudmouths who got kicked off of the other one, and it's just you need to put it where regular people who don't say dumb things and get kicked off are starting to be like, you know what, I don't like this anymore, and then you have that opportunity. But like, I'm on Parler and stuff too, and it's just like, why am I even there? It's such a ghetto app. It's like everyone's just like screaming about how Trump should still be president and stuff. It's just like that's enough of that. I don't care anymore. Come on, like I want to talk about normal things. Like I post crypto stuff, and then like there's like one guy will like my post, and that's it.
Yeah, it's amazing that people they just want to turn everything back into a political thing too sometimes, and it's just what happened to cat pictures?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, something interesting, that's unique, that's not copy pasted off of some political message. Like I remember in the early days of Facebook, you saw things that other people were thinking or doing, like they were actual individuals that you were interacting with, and now they're just copy pasters for ideologies and stuff, and it's you're not actually talking to the person anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you could do like a KYC like Voice does, where you have to like give your US based ID to use the EOS social network, but that's a different bit of shade I don't need to be throwing here. The one thing is when you have Dash identities, you might be able to make sock puppets, but it's going to like cost you to make sock puppets, and so
that'd be a cost, and that's a nice thing too. And I could see a use for a Dash ID system in doing CAPTCHAs, because eventually the computers are going to be able to pass all the CAPTCHAs. It won't be long. I would imagine that there's people out there already with AIs that are trained to beat most of the CAPTCHAs. If you attach a trivial transaction fee to those, that prevents people from, sending bots in by the millions.
What's funny about CAPTCHAs, by the way, is that was Nano's distribution model. Is 100% pre-mined, because I think you have to with that kind of a coin, and they just had CAPTCHA faucets. That's how they distributed it. And I'm like, I'll stick with mining. I think like mining has its issues, but it's like I think it's more secure a distribution mechanism than like CAPTCHAs. But yeah, that's kind of neither here nor there. We're kind of getting into the woods here. It's probably a good time around to start wrapping it up. Any other parting thoughts you have?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I will use the time.
You kind of covered the main things, main points.
So this is a really good beer, by the way. Abel Ebenezer Brewing. I bought this with Dash. They just started taking crypto like for delivery and then now in person. I believe it was like last week or so. It was like the last couple of weeks. So great brewery in Merrimack, New Hampshire. They do deliver locally. Yeah, and they take crypto and they hodl it. I know the guy who runs it. And so yeah, if you want to, if you're in the area or whatever, or you see these guys distributed somewhere, definitely check them out because they're good people and you can spend your Dash. It's funny because like spent Dash on this, spent Dash on this, spent Dash on this, spent Dash on this. You can't get these anymore. Bitagraphs went under. I did not spend Dash on this because this was a gift, but it's like, oh, spent Dash on this and this. And it's like, it's good to have that. Like, I might be the crazy person doing this stuff, but not very long in the future. Like, I know another person within 10 miles of me who lives unbanked off of Dash. So it's like, it's not just me. We're starting to multiply. Hopefully it will be everyone soon. So do you want people to follow you on Twitter, by the way, Eric, or wherever else you are?
They can if they want to. I don't really use Twitter for much. So I actually don't know where people can follow me. I suppose put it on. Sure.
Yeah. What was it? Evil Duck 92?
I don't even know.
I think so. I think that was it.
What's my idea? It was Evil Duck something. I don't even know why anymore.
Yeah, I don't think anyone needs to really know why either. It's just
if you find
Evil Duck 92. That's where you can see more of the stuff. Well, thanks for being on, and we're going to go right into the after party, which is like this, but not recorded. And yeah, it's going to be just hanging out. You're going to see me drink the beer a little bit live on whatever. And how you get there. First, you got to get to the Dash Discord, which used to be called Dash Talk Discord. Now I like it just the Dash Discord. There can be only one. And it's you go staydashy.com is the way I know to get in there. It's dashy.com. And then you just start asking around. Hey, where's this after party at? How do I get to the after party? And then we'll plug you in, speakeasy style. So thanks everyone for watching. Next week, Digital Cash Rundown. And I do believe that we might be moving to weekly on that. So on Dash Podcast Days, I'll have already done a show before then. And then just run straight into that. So anyway, thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks so much for the super chats and such. And I will see you guys next time.